Dhamma Jumden the Shin Shavanda Jumba Yanda Mazovez Ribada Shazon Demban Devare Shevan Jin Jamba Jibon Kalo Juvana Meva Hada Sanje Jumden Bejawa Shaja Tubana Chasan Judo Jasuchu Dhamma Jumden the Shin Shavanda Jumba Yanda Mazovez Sanje Riba Shazon Demban Devare Shevan Jin Jamba Jibon Lana Meva Hada Menam Jedemba Sanje Jumden Bejawa Shaja Tubana Chasan Judo Jasuchu Dhamma Jumden the Shin Shavanda Jumba Yanda Mazovez Ribada Shazun Demba Devare Shevan Jin Jamba Jibon Kalo Juvana Meva Hada Menam Jedemba Sanje Jumden Bejawa Shaja Tubana Chasan Judo Jasuchu Kanse Ganyan Zowa Chadamazea Sajentena Gomban Debra Nane Jedende Na Georgia Zon Tezakia Vajana Namda Gunga Shoto Susan Wa Yisheja Zo Seja Rumba Chaba Jeden Sunda Lambe Gombo Chonye Jona Chata Senjon Dema Chimenda Veje Sendor Dawa Jona Chata De Rechana Seba Suma Nyame Chenchen Jona Chata Gombo Tuji Shedemba Tanje Jembe Temba Sonami Deja The Shinshama Chasero, Taban Desha Chova, giving me some Chido Denamajogi, Washing Jona Chasano, Trailer, Labatala Rabdone, Shingatamba Yunda, the Gilema Yasada, the Wachia Misha Jingawa Pesoso, Jerangasim, Tene Sanje Damba Yakamara, Jumasa, Melamada, Jinda, Decision, the Ratan, Sonam Diatam Jesse. Quantum ne Jinja Datu de Gada Nada, Shiva Lobby, Sibe Solen, Jovan Jovaration.
The teacher, the blessed one, the one fully destroyed, completely perfected, fully awakened, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, no order, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, blessed one, glorious comfort, subdue upon the Shakya clan, and prostrate make offerings and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one, the one gone beyond, full destroyer, completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, no longer, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, glorious conqueror, the subdue from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one, the one gone beyond, full destroyer, completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, no of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious comfort, the subdue from the Shakya clan, by prostrate make offerings and go for refuge. When I'm supreme among humans, you born on this earth, you placed out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then I prostrate. To the pure bodies formed supremely pure, wisdom ocean like golden mountain, flame that blazes in the 3 words, you know the best, to you I prostrate. With supreme signs, face like spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. You are immaculate, the 3 words are not, incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the teacher having all understanding, filled of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you the one come to vastness I prostrate. The purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtue which frees one from the lower realms, the one path, sublime, pure reality, to the Dharma which pacifies I prostrate. Those who are liberated and who also show the path to liberation, holy few qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you the sublime community intending virtue I prostrate. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. Star, mirage, flammable lamp. illusion, drop of dew or bubble, dream or flash of lightning or cloud. These conditions things as such. Through these merits, the essential beings of the mental force, subdue the flow of thoughts, and be delivered from emotional suffering, aging, sickness, and death.
Sanje Shondong Soje Shondong Chanchu Bato Tane Jasu Dage Soje Sonam Je Dola Penche Sanje Jufu Sanje Shondong Soje Shondong Chanchu Bato Tane Jasu Dage Soje Sonam Je Dola Penche Sanje Jufu Sanje Shondong Soje Shondong Chanchu Bato Tane Jasu Dage Soje Sonam Je Dola Penche Sanje Jufu.
I go for refuge and to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge and to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge and to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Kete Pumba Dayano, Jadan Shivajan Dojo, Kete Pumba Namnesha, Pumba Senior Mewi, Danya Yoba Mayana, Dagi Yoba Kana, Dada Dagi Shivich, Manzemayan Zemek, Manzemayan Zemeka, Tia Yoba Mayan, Manzemayan Zemek, Kango Ton, Nanda Chirinidana, Dada Dagi Yamzan, Yawanda Bagashi, the seven, the Java set, let on your most ever thorough, let on your Bona, the Triller Joban, Tombani Jacob. Dago Sheja, Dajuja, Dame Jeja, Sanjan, Dame Jeja. Jobra Chawando Badia, Sinjeju, Lobezu, Majapa, Chunin Yaman, the Song. Tamje Yada Yada me, Yada Yada Mayini, Yada Mimi Yada me, Tennis and Jeja. Shene Sheme Shiva, Jovanam Jamajo, Mondo Mita de me, Tenet, Kana de Nabanjo, Tele Rishit in you, Tele Shamba, Jet, Sanje Jeden Venom Jetemba to Singuba, the Tunjima Jeted, the Cheva Manyatam, Zosanja Namashushi, Yedeno de Seven, the Rosanje Jishin, Temba Medara, the Jay and Dada Chua of a Session of the Church. Kangia to Zenyazona Dawata, the Beshan of the bottom. So we are on the, page number 181. Yeah, so this is the sixth ground. Maybe I'll just hear this thing from the beginning. Sutra, the 10th ground sutra says, when the Bodhisattvas on the 5th ground enters the 6th ground, he does so by means of 10 perfect equanimities with respect to the phenomena. So this saying that 5th ground to the entering into the 6th ground through meditative equipoise, through the meditations, right? So through one continuing meditations, and the 5th ground become the 6th ground. So now this whole kind of, the discussions, the discourse on the, what is that thing, that 5th ground through the meditating on, and then it will lead them individual to the 6th ground, attaining the 6 grounds. What is that object they are focusing on? So, and then the object here is the emptiness. So then Shantateva says, to understand the properly about the emptiness, first you should know what is the negation element, so what we are negating. Right? So negations without being touching on the negation element, and no possible understanding that the absence of intrinsic existence. So then when it comes to the negation element, identifying the negation element, and then Swatantrika middle way, understanding of the negation element, the Prasangika school. So we have finished with the Swatantrika middle way. So Swatantrika middle way, their negations element is the, sometimes 50-50. So from the object side, there's something half, and then the subject, they kind of add up the 50%. So that is called things, things presented to be existing through the power of this conventional or perceptions, through the power of the perceptions. Now, when it comes to the Prasangika school, no 50-50, it's 100% conceptual projections. So so reading this, identifying the grasping at true existence according to the Prasangika middle way standpoint, if one understands how, according to this systems, phenomena are presented through mere conceptualizations, one can then easily recognize how its opposite would constitute the grasping at true existence. So the Prasangika school says, so a negation element can be recognized or identified by negating the objectivity. When you negate the objectivity through the logic, and then the opposite of that is the grasping of self. Right? So the grasping means the misconception, that conceiving the objectivity of the phenomena, objectivity of the person, objectivity of the things that are other than the person, are the grasping itself. So this two subject negations, negation element with subject, with respect to subject, is the misconceptions. Negation element with respect to the object, and that is the truly existing, or the objectivity of the phenomena. Right. So here, this is what we are in the Prasangika school. So whatever that negated intrinsic nature is the object that the fifth ground is meditating on, and with that, they interest in the sixth ground. So so then says the opposite would be constitute the grasping true existence. This presentation has two parts: how phenomena are presented through conceptualization, and number two, the presenting the grasping at true existence, the contrary apprehensions. So, which means how phenomena are presented through the conceptualizations, how things do exist through the conceptualizations, right? And as it appears, grasping as it appears is the misconceptions. How things do exist, right, through the conceptualizations. So I think here how things exist through the conceptualizations and everything. Continuity is one of the example. Continuity is existing through the conceptualizations. Now, when it comes to continuity, how the continuity appears to the mind, and continuity appears to the mind is one single entity constantly remaining to be existing. That is how the misconceiving or misinterpretations or misapprehending the conventional reality. So like in the Buddha Bali, they mentioned some people believe that time is independent. Time is independent and intrinsic. And then what is that time? How do you really, define that time? And then they seem to be explaining that time is the one single entity that was in the past, now in the present, will be in the future. The one single entity, like like Gupta coming back from village, and he is returning back to the village. The Gupta is one single person. So in this way, people misinterpret the time is the one thing, is the one single entity, and that continuously remaining with past, with present, with future. So in this way, we interpreted the continuity, and that is misunderstanding or misinterpretations. And then the arising, concept of arising arising and arising, and so arising as the future, arising of the sprout, and arising of the sprout, right? So when we conceptually or globally and then constructing the future as a sprout, present arisen sprout as a sprout, right? So as it constructed, if we grasping, if we believe, so future sprout is the sprout, and the arisen sprout is the sprout, and the future enlightened being is enlightened being, right? So if the future enlightened being is already enlightened, so my future enlightened being is right now, he is enlightened being, which means I'm already enlightened, right? So then why do I need to study and meditate and read more books? Right? So this is how the interpretations, things that appears and in the opposite way, and as it appears, if we're grasping, and that is the misconception, the grasping. So how phenomena are presented through the conceptualizations. Now the questions of the Upali states. I believe this Upali is the one of the female arhat. So her questions. So here, the flowers with their open petals that delighted to so many minds, the supreme goals, mentions, resplendent and attractive. So none of these has creator. They are presented through the power of the conception, through the conceptualization. World is imputed. So so this is like the God Ram or Celestial Ram, right? So these are, and here is saying this is purely conceptually and projections. So there is no creator of that beautiful Ram, which means there is no one single cause which has created all these beautiful the God Rams. And then there's the hell Ram, the animal Rams, the hungry ghost Rams. This has also, there is no one single cause to create it. So everything happened to arises by depending on many factors. So they are presented through the power of the conceptions, through the conceptualization, the world is imputed. Thus, phenomena are taught to be presented through the power of the conceptualization on many other occasions, the phenomena are described as mere imputation of the thought, and as presented through the virtue of power of conceptualizations. The 60 stanzas, Nagarjuna's 60 stanzas of reasoning, it says, Buddha had stated that the world is conditioned by ignorance, so why would it be unreasonable to say this world is product of the conceptualizations? So it's the kind of, the world is big dizzy. So it's very, very deep disease. So swing by the thought, conceptualizations, often swing by. So then we see things, everything's moving. So Nagarjuna says, in that case, the world is the product of conceptualizations. So the commentary explains these verses to mean that the world is mere conceptual imputations and does not exist in its own right. 400 stanzas also says, if without conceptualizations, attachment and so on do not exist at all, with intelligent persons would grasp something as a perfectly real and as conception. So what would intelligent wisdom? Intelligent do not grasp it on an entity or the phenomena as it appears. So out of ignorance, and people see things, the continuity is about one single entity constantly existing, and the arising of the sprout is already a sprout, and it is coming towards you, right? Your future is already effect, and it is, you are getting closer to it, or that thing, future itself is coming towards you. So that's the kind of, how the ignorance projects things. So as ignorance projected, and we believe in that the very, the grasping within the appearance is the, misconception or the ignorance. So there were also the so without conceptualizations, now through the conceptualization, with conceptualizations, there are things to be attached, things to be angry, things to be jealous, things to be the future that's already existed somewhere, right? And things that like the past that already exist and they left off in somewhere in the time, and the present that is unchangeably remain existing, right? Is standing still. So this is how, out of ignorance, we see things, and everything is substantial and concrete and solid existence. That very mind is the, that very mind is the big confusions. So this is, I would say, this is like, the black woolen blanket. So it's covered up with consciousness, and not one blanket, so many blankets. Right? So that's why sentient beings always, confused and unreasonably not happy. So, and then Right Stating Sutra, this is this very misconception itself is the disease, is the cancer. So, and then the good news of that is, and because of this ignorance, we can see the nations, we can see the country, we can see the world, we can see the different realms, the animal realms, the hungry ghost realms. We can see the respected rich persons. We can see disrespect, deserving poor people. This is, with this ignorance, and we see so many things. And there's so many things to talk, right? Until the last breath. So, so with this, the good news of this, the kind of movie of the ignorance is like that. So through the conceptualizations, and everything exists. Now the existing of the conceptualizations entity is not the problem, and the entity that exists through the conceptualizations as a real, and as a truly existing, as a substantially existing, it exists with the essence by itself. It exists through the true characterizations are all kind of misconceptions. So in its commentary, the two, one reads, those things that exist only because of the presence of the conceptualizations and have no existence. When there is no there's no conception, when there is no conceptions, are without doubt like a snake conceived upon coiled rope, definitely not established in their own right. So the Prasangika school, in the Prasangika school, and they see is that all the example like a dream, like a reflection, like illusion, like, and the snake in the coil rope are all proving that nothing truly exists. So the South Tantric middle way, and they don't want to use the coil rope because the coil rope is 100% mental projections. And the illusions have some kind of a degree of they believe that some kind of degree of the validity from the object side, right? So the Siddhanta school say the Siddhanta and the Prasangika school, so no existing when there is no conceptions are without doubt is like a snake conceived upon coiled rope. So, for example, if someone asks, and how do you really explain the relation of the barley seed and sprout, cause and effect relations? How can you explain that this is like existing, like a snake in a coiled rope? Right. So the relation of the barley seed and sprout, the relation of the cause and effect. So because when it appears to the mind, the relation, it is something, we also call it unshakable relations of the seed and sprout, cause and effect, smoke and fire, unshakable relations. So that this relations, it is unshakable, is a real with respect to the sprout to manifest without preceding the seed is impossible. Right? Whenever there is a sprout that already arisen, and the seed of that must have preceded by that, right? So that in that case,
yeah, that kind of seems real. This we can prove. But to establish the relations, so relation cannot be objectively groundable within the seed, and the relation of the barley seed is objectively not groundable within the sprout. So when the sprout is arisen, seed is non-existing. So a seed is non-exist, and there is nothing to relate. When the seed is existing, the sprout is also not yet born. So the seed cannot have any relation with the unborn, the sprout. So the relation is they exist in the face of thought. So it's conceptually and constructed. So this is exactly like the snake and the coil rope. So now a snake in a coil rope means that the snake that you conceive up on the coil rope, and if you try to find every part of that, the rope, the kind of the shape of that, the color. So from their side, there is nothing at all. Right? There is nothing at all to represent the snake. So in this way, the relation of the barley seed and sprout, there is nothing at all during the seed from the seed, and during the sprout from the sprout. But it, right, is undeniably it exists. That very appearance to the thought is called real, is a conventional real. So where it not objectively existing exactly the same as a snake not exist within the coil rope. The perfectly real means something existing in its own right, and the conceptualizations. The perfectly real means something that existing in its own right, and conceptualizations. So arises in a relation to it. The statement in this commentary about how the attachment and so on are like the imputation of the snake upon rope merely presents them as an example. So now the kind of how it's the relations of the barley seed and the sprout, how it related with the snake in the coiled rope is the way it not where the snake is not exists from the rope, and exactly the same as the relations does not exist from the seed and the sprout. So now the aspect of this, the snake in the coil rope is the snake in the coil rope, that very snake in the coil rope is non-existing. Now relation of the barley sprout, seed and sprout is not a non-existing. So one exists, one is not exist. In the case of existing from the basis is same, exactly same. Right. So now who is deciding, making it, who is determining that the relation of the barley sprout is real, and the snake with the coil rope is non-existing. So then there says, you can judge them with three conditions. One, the common experience, right? The common experience, maybe there is appearance that you experience. Maybe you see the snake in the coil rope because of the poor light, right? There is no light at all, right? And there's something that you can see, this color, the patterns of the color in the coiled rope, and then you project that, so it appears to you as a snake, right? So so that this is also the same. When you witness the seed that you have planted in soil, and then after a week or a month, and you have seen, you also witness the sprout that is arisen. So, and then conceptually says, oh, because of that seed, now it is sprouting, right? So you see the relations in your mind. So the experience, maybe there is the same. Now the second, the condition that kind of, the determining the existing or the real or not real is the conventional, ordinary perceptions. So in the ordinary perceptions, what this is, if you go, right, you may see the snake in the coil rope, and more you go closer to the rope, and you will see that snake is not exist, right? And then every time when you see the sprout or any flowers, and you see the relation of their seed. So ordinary perceptions is proving the snake in the coil rope is non-existing, and the relation to the barley seed and sprout exist. And then the third conditions to determine these two, which one is the real or which is not real, unreal. And then says the ultimate consciousness, the consciousness which is which examining the objectivities. So the objectivity, the conception, the consciousness which is seeking objectivity of the phenomena. So the objectivity is not in this snake in a coil rope, and the objectivity is not in the the relation of the barley seed and sprout. So with three consciousness, with three subject, and we can determine the relation of the barley sprout is the real, and the snake in the coil rope is, rejected by two judges. So first judge is a little bit ignorance, and common experience, and then a little bit doubt. And the second judge and third judge say the snake called him is non-existing. So that's how is a convention. One is the conventional reality. One is even not real in conventionally. A snake in the coiled rope is not real even in the conventionally. So, and again is saying that, so your conventional reality is very fragile. It has to be reliant on someone. There is no objectivity. And then that says, yes, that's very true. So this is how, through the projections, we see each person sees their own life, their kind of way of living. So even you two persons staying in one room, but still you don't see so you don't see other person's life. Other persons don't see your life. And then again, and commonly human beings, the human realm, that is only appears in the human being, experienced by the human being, not the dogs and other animals. Animals, their life, they see don't see by the human beings, right? And then God realm is like that. So in this case, the life is through the projections. So life here, that means life that we are living is through the projections. Now, if you interpret the life as a, you're living or not living, that life is taking life, that life is a little bit different. Right? Life and living. So this language is so desperate. So this life kind of, colorful and successful and not successful, and so much the suffering and there's happiness. These are all through the mental projections. So, and then in the sutra, Bodhisattva, there's one line, Samye, in the Buddha says, the bhikshu who understands the dependent arisings. Bhikshu understands the dependent arisings, which means bhikshu who understands no objectivity of any phenomena. And that bhikshu will be happy all the time. That person has found the happiness or the peace, real, sustainable, reliable peace. So, and the opposite of that, the bhikshus who do not see things as dependent arisings, and bhikshu, they do see the objectivity of the phenomena, and that suffering is inevitable. Right? So it's bound to happen. The suffering is. So I think that again suggesting the suffering is through the mental projection. So the perfectly real means something exists in their own right. Yangtapas, sometimes it's the English translations from the Tibetan terms, Yangtapas. Yangtapa, perfectly real and true and perfectly real and ultimately real. So the real has many levels, right? It's a real, so which means, yes, there's some kind of reality. It has some basis. Something that has basis is the real. And then ultimate real is this the final. There is no real beyond that. Right? And perfectly real means it cannot be it's not interpretable. It's not convertible. So that is the perfect real. Right? So, for example, the continuity is the real. Continuity of continuity, right? The continuity of the minute that remains for 60 seconds is the real, right? Because that reality is the humanly constructed. Minute should remain for 60 seconds. So because of the human being's measurement, it should be real. Now, is it perfectly real? Right? If the perfectly real means that the very minute is the consist of the 60 second, that single entity should constantly present in each seconds. Right? So if that is not the case, and it's not a perfectly real, it's the real that you made it up, and the not perfectly real. And the minute is not ultimate real. So not ultimate real means minute can be found to be non-existing if we examine within the second. It will disappear, it shall away. So it's not ultimate real. So real through making it up. Right? So the perfectly real, ultimate real, and just real, conventional real. So here they're saying the perfectly real means something that exists in its own right, and it has to be exist by their own essence. So it has to be exist by itself. And again, it exists in and of itself. Is the perfect real. So yeah, the conceptual, and then the and conceptualizations arise in the relation to it. So the real is because the conventional reality is not a perfectly real, but it's real. It's real through the conceptualizations, and for example, the arising in the relation to it, the arising of the sprout, the future that exists, right? Future that exists when we, when you reflect on the cause, the future exists. So without the cause, without the observing in the cause, without understanding the potential of cause, there is no future that exists by itself. Right. So future is like a shadow. Future is like reflections. They don't exist by themselves. It projected by observing and the potential of the cause. Right. Sometimes people say, when you open the door, where are you going? So because they see the potential of he may go out, right? So if he go and close the door, right? So the potential, when you see the potential, and then it automatically reflect in your mind on this may happen. This is how the future exists. Right? Future has no location to be grounded, to be exist. Right? So like here is through the conceptualizations. The statement in this commentary is, how about attachment and so on are like an imputation of the snake upon rope, merely present them as example. So the object of attachment, object of anger, object of ignorance. So these are just conceptually superimposing on the phenomena. So superimpositionals do not exist even in the conventional. The statement in the fact that shows how all phenomena are presented by the conceptualization, just like a snake conceived on the basis of a rope. For instance, when a rope that looks like snake because of its multicolor pattern and the manner in which it is coiled is encountered in a poorly lit area. Right? So you see there's a less brightness, right? It's, what do you call it? Dim, right? Dim. And then at the corner, and the pattern of the robe looks like a snake. And when you see that, and then you project, if that person has no concept of snake, so he may project something else. Right? If you're so afraid of the tiger or this cat, and he may think that, oh, the cat is just like that. So this is a snake may arises. At that moment, there is not the slightest objective basis on the part of rope, either part of rope, that's the one, and either in aggregates or in its parts that can be identified as an instant of the snake. So therefore, this snake is a mere conceptual imputations. Similarly, when the thought, right, I am, arises in dependence upon the aggregates, the body, feeling, discrimination, and the mental formations and the perceptions. So when the thought I am arises in dependence upon the aggregates, there is not even a slightest basis on the part of the aggregates. So the illustration I is a totally absence within the aggregates. Right? Person, male, female, whatever you call, that the identity is totally found to be absence within the body, within the feeling, within the mental formations, within the perceptions like eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, even in the air in the body, the wind element, space element, and the heat, and then motions. So all of them are totally absence of person, therefore totally absence of male and female. Even the slightest part of the aggregates, whether as a collection of the earlier and the later continua, or as a collection of the simultaneous, right, factors and parts that can be presented as the instant of this I. So nothing is, every part of your bodies, every elements of the body, every feelings, physical feelings, or every mental feelings, every kind of mental emotionals, every eye conscious, nose conscious, tongue consciousness, even the eye sensible, nose sensible, nothing is the illustration of I. This will be explained more extensively below. For this reason, and because there is not even a slightest entity that is distinct from the aggregates, whether in terms of their parts or their barriers. So that can be taken to be a basis of the I. So this I is presented through mere conception in dependence upon the aggregates. It has no existence in its own right. This is the state in the precious, this is state in the precious garden as well. So precious garden where it says the individual, the person is not the earth or the water. He is not the fire, he is not the wind, not the space. He is not the consciousness. So if he is not all these, whether then is the individual or the person apart, right? Apart from these. So the person is not in each aggregates and not are each aggregates, not even he exists apart from the aggregates. So now the disappearance of the self, I, is, there is no way it can be exist within the aggregates or apart from the aggregates. Right? So the objectively, this is how the I is not objectively exists. Now the second is I because of its objectively totally absence, it is non-exist at all, but through the collections of the mind and the body, right? The mind and body conceptually creates the entity of me, and that can happen to be possess the body, happen to be possessing the consciousness. So now the body and the mind belongs to that entity of I, that the very entity of I as a possessor is conceptually projected. So this is why you say when the body is young, and as we say, he is children, right? And then he grown up a little bit, and then say, oh, that's a child, and that's a youth. So that I become the first child, and the teenagers, and the youth, and adult, and aging. So if the I that exists by itself, identity of the I should be remain the same. So why that I changes when the part of the aggregates change? I am not well today. I'm well today. I'm cured. I'm ill. So I am talking. I'm making. So the I constantly changing with the characteristics. Sometimes the I identified, I as identified with the characteristics, with the characters. Sometimes, right? If you are making a pot, you are living making a pot. So I become the potter. It's not because of the body. You are pot. You are not a potted. You are not potters. Not because of the body, because of the pot that you make. You are carpenter, not because of the body, that you make that table and the chairs. So by depending on the table and chairs and the person again existing, so the I that existing, there is no kind of rule, there is no certainty. Sometimes it exists, right? Exists through or with the body, when the body is young and youth and children and like that. Even it's not the body. Like if you make table, right, and you start making table and selling it, or so you're a carpenter. So the self, a person, is proving that. So it is not exist by itself. It's not exist by its own essence. It existing through the power of the conceptualizations. If someone insists, some means I think most of the people tends to believe that the I should be the kind of how to say, exist with every age. I should be exist unchangeably, the kind of from the childhood to the old age, and I should be continuously remaining, even the death, after the death. This is how we project. So in that case, if the I still exists, even after the death, and then I as a youth, and also should exist when you get older. So, for example, in the food, delicious food, right? So delicious. The first is the food. So when you after have eaten and then turn into waste, we don't say, now food is here. Right? So I throw the food in toilet. So no, we don't. That is no longer food. So it's changing, the transformations. Transformations means, does not mean the one single entity constantly existing in a different form. Transformations mean one ceases to exist, another arises. That ceases to exist, and another arises. So that is the transformations. Milk to the yogurt, seed to the sprout, right? And youth to the adult to the aged, right? So one that has already passed should not be coming back. So this the precious garden says, individual is not the earth or the water. He is not the fire, not the wind, nor space. He is not this consciousness. So if he is not all this, where then is the individual apart from this? Which means, how can he be apart from it? So here the individual is the persons. Individual is the person, the sentient beings. In Hindi, in the Hindi language, there's so many names of the person. So sentient beings, the I or the self, not the earth, and so on up to not the consciousness, refutes the postulations of the 6 elements of the sentient beings, which are its parts, as constituting the persons. So what constituting the persons? What makes the existing of the person are the air, moisture, heat, and consciousness, sense power, and perceptions, and the emotions. These factors kind of are the condition to making existing of I. Right? So therefore, I should not be exist apart from it. When the I is not exist, I or the self does not exist apart from that, the collection of the elements, the collection of the emotions and the perceptions. And I also totally absent within each of those factors. Like the relation of the barley seed, relations, having relations is not with the seed, not with the sprout, not in the past time, not in the present time. So of course not in the future. The relations cannot be found. The really cause and effect relations cannot be found within the cause, within the effect. So the 3 times of the barley seed and the barley sprout has no relation to be existing, no relation to be found. But relation is conceptually projected, constructed by having witnessing the seed and the sprout. So in this way, having seeing the body and I exist. I'm tall, I'm short, I'm right, I'm thin, this exists. I'm strong, I'm weak. So having experiencing the feeling, so I'm happy, not happy, excited, disappointed, I exist. And with the, with emotionals, right? So I am with emotional, particularly for example, if you have emotionally kind of culturally drawn into faith in the Buddha, so say, oh, I'm a Buddhist, I'm a religious person, right? And then, so this is kind of and I don't like that. I find this very attractive. So this whole existence with emotions. So these are factors making existence of I. And then the I am seeing, I'm hearing, I'm smelling, right? So and this also making existing in the different agents, seer, smeller, right? Listeners. So, but each of those factors, if you closely look, or kind of their characters, their functions, and there is no such person in it. So, which means it totally absent within the basis or within the factors which is making existing of I, and I also it made it to be existing by depending upon those factors. Without that, there is no I or self could exist. So that's why it existing of the I is through the conceptualizations. The existing of the nation is through the conceptualization. Existing of the countries, and one country become two country become one country, is all through the conceptualizations. Right? So nationality is also conceptualizations. So I find very, when you go through the immigrations in different countries, and you will find your nationalities. It's American, USA. So in the America, and if they ask nations, or are you Asian, so nationality is changing, right? So it's not like fixed with one thing. So you have another nationality in the airplane. So when you landed, and another nationality. So if this is not conceptualizations, it cannot be changed. In the air, one nation, and on the ground, another nationalities. So just clearly proving this all conceptualizations. So so this is the no existing in their own right, how they do not possess an independent natures, how they do not possess an independent natures, something not possessed through the power of some other conventions. Number 4, no matter the phenomena, when it is possessed as existence, it is done so without analyze. So which means if you want to make existing of the relation of the barley sprout, barley seed and sprout, you shouldn't be kind of, objectively looking into the relation. If you look objectively in the relations is not finding. So if you try to see yourself objectively, you cannot find within the aggregates or outside the aggregates. So there's no third possibility that you could exist. So which means the existing has to be exist within the projections. Right? It subjectively exist. If you try to find it the objectively, you even conventions do not exist. So, and also I mentioned it many times, going to next life or my future life is coming with the future life. And so this person in this life is going to the next life. So this is purely based on appearance. That appearance of the the person with this life is going to the next life is because of you have constructed the next life is coming. If you don't see in your thought next life is coming, and you don't see this life person is going there. So it's kind of, this kind of illusion-like phenomena is exactly the same. Like, when you hold one instant stick, and incense stick, just if you kind of, turn it very fast, and you will see the will. That will is you have witness with direct perceptions. You cannot deny there is no will of the fire. So if you don't deny, that does not mean you have so you can prove there's the will of the fire. You cannot prove. But only you can say it appears to be, therefore I call it will of fire. So one hand and move very fast, you can see the fans of hand. That looks like fan, right? So some people will say this. So if that fans is directly experienced, is perceived. But if someone says, do you have the real fans of the many hands? No, we don't have it. But the appearance that is undeniably exists, that is your conventional reality. That part, appearance, is your conventional reality. If you go a little bit beyond the concept, that appearance, and you start lying. So there's beyond that appearance, there is no real fans of hand, one single hand. There's no will of life with one single instance. So there is no there is no present the person with the present life. This life and the present life, there is no present life which is going towards the future, because it is the product. Anything that is a product, it disintegrates. Whatever that has disintegrated, not going forward. So what has disintegrated, that makes the second event or second things that arises. So that second things is disintegrate another another the conditional things that manifest. So that is the transformations, that is the change, that is the impermanent, that is the continuities. So the way you're accepting, there is the conventional reality of going to next life. There is the reality of coming of the next life. And that reality has to be exist within the phase of thought. This no longer real if you go a little bit beyond the concept. So conventional reality is a very fragile and a very fallacy, and it is the real in sense of the because it is the product. Like a magicianal phenomena. We all entertain, we open eye, we see it, right? We enjoy that in the magician things. So that is undeniably exist. But the magician himself also have the same appearance as the audience, but he knows there is no such real. This is all my creation. Right? I tricked. So this kind of things happen. Right? So that's, human realm is like that. God realm is like that. Animal realms and hell realms and everything is like, greed. It's all creations that is constantly, right? Constantly creating, non-stoppable creating. And then we have this, endless movie kind of, we see in this space the endlessly, movie. We see the movies, right? So this whole space is like a theater, and these concepts like habituations constantly projecting as the projectors and projects the movie and this space, and we always kind of trapped, or we cry with that, we're excited with that. So that is the second existence. When the mind starts to understand this whole, these are the creations. So mind start awakening. So once the total awake and they remove all the misconceptions, so misconceptions remove or disappears or dissolve within the absence. And so that mind is called liberated mind. So where am I? So so the negates the postulations of some of these elements as the persons. The final line refutes the postulation, something that is different entity from these elements as the persons. So the person negated as independent from the aggregates, and person also negated as a kind of inherently exist within the each aggregates. Nevertheless, it is not the case that one does not accept the existing of person at all, nor does one accept the foundation's consciousness. So this is the foundation of consciousness. The term constantly changing, I don't know. Sometimes the mind-based all, so the mind-only school, the foundation consciousness, or the mind-based all, or the alayas. So mind-only school thinks that the eighth consciousness, which is, represents, or it is the illustration of I. So the Prasangika school, we don't accept the foundation consciousness, and so on as the persons. Even the mind basis all is nonsense. Therefore, the Noble Nagarjuna too accept the nature of the existing of the persons exactly as explained by the commentary authors. So through the conceptualizations. If one understands how the person is presented through the conception like this, one will understand how all other phenomena are presented through conceptualizations in exactly the same way.
So, Geshe, going back to this alaya consciousness,
Okay.
which sometimes is referred to as the place where karmic seeds are stored. So, the mind-only school, I guess, if I'm hearing this correctly, accepts that view that karmic seeds are stored there. But the Prasangika school just says this is another conceptual attribution. It doesn't truly exist. Am I understanding this correctly?
Yes, that's very correct. Now here this is Vaibhashika school and the Prasangika school. The karmic, the force of the karmic, and looks like there's another. Yeah, it looks like it's the momentum of the kind of force of that karma. Now, and then the Vaibhashika school, they have given a name. It's like a bank statement. If you loan, so there's a statement that you have $100 and you have loans. Now, so if you have the statement of that, so you don't have to carry all the time. So so you can use the $100 within the year, or within the month, or within the week, or within the day. So if you finished all $100, there is no other money to come that you can expense. So the Vaibhashika school said this is like, the karma that you have committed in the past, now it remains as just force. That is, we are labeling this like bank statement. And then the Prasangika school and giving names that the very force of each karma is called non-dissipation. So, lechun misavas, non-dissipations, or non-dissipated karma. So the karma is no longer there because it already kind of committed in the past life, or the last month, or the last year, or yesterday. It's gone. It is, it disintegrated. But the force remains. So this force this force, it's suggesting there's the continuations. So that continuations, and the Prasangika school say it's a non-dissipation of the karma. You don't need any container to hold this force. So the minority school, because they are kind of, they're afraid of losing the faith in the law and cause and effect, right? If the karma that you have committed last year or the next life, and because it is impermanent and that disintegrate, so if they disintegrate, and maybe you may face, or you may counter the negative consequences that you haven't committed. You may counter the positive consequences that other person has committed. So there is no unshakable relations. So I want to establish something that could hold this kind of the relation of that karma. So then they kind of intelligently, and they created the eighth consciousness, which is there's only one function of that particular consciousness, is storage all the karmic seeds. Right. So when you look at, like, for example, so the, and the farmers, when they talk about the seed, so they always kind of try, first they understand how their seeds is coming from, how they, and last year, the how's that, what do you call, the last year harvest, did those persons has a kind of fertilized enough, or that last year the seed has received enough sunlight, enough fertilized, enough kind of nutritions. So if that history is correct, and they will buy the seed, they believe this may give good harvest in the futures. So if you read in the seed, there is nothing you can read, right? So, but it carries the force, the influence, or the impact from the past. So there is, within the one seed, there is no one part has the storage all the history, right? Not upper part of the seed, or not the lower part of the seed, nor the middle part of the seed has carrying. There's no the carrier, or there's no container to all the histories. But it proves, this seed will prove, right? And if you compare two seed, and then one that has a kind of good history, so it will give the better fruit, and the other maybe kind of not that much. So this is what we call the unshakable non-dissipation of the past. Although karma has the past, but non-dissipation. It won't dissipate. It won't so negative karma won't give any positive consequences, and the positive karma won't give any negative consequences. Or my karma will not bring any consequences to other persons. Other karmas won't bring any negative consequences to me. So the non-dissipations, the indestructible relations of the cause and their consequence, their effect. So Prasangika schools, you don't have to worry that. You don't need to make something to contains all the seed. And then the Prasangika, we ask, right? Then how, if there is many force that continuously within your consciousness, many different karmas, the forces within your continuity consciousness. So how it deciding? So you will what will deciding that the positive you may encounter the positive consequences, negative consequences, because all the force is the same, just like waterfalls coming down, right? And so it is like like a jackpot. So good things happen accidentally, right? And the Prasangika school says no. The force is there, the potential is there, but you have to do something. Like if you do something positive thinking, it will connect to the positive karmic force, and then it will give the result. And if you are emotionally disturbed, and this emotional as a fertilizer to connect to the negative karma, and that will give the result. So there's non-dissipations.
Okay, I have some further questions about this. This sounds like karma is like there's almost like there's a master of Chinese fortune cookies, depending on positive or negative karma. That's a joke, by the way. But it almost, you can't. Since it's one of the four foundations.
Yeah, in some sense, karma is like a joke because life is like a joke. It's a big disease.
Very little in my life is like a joke, but
very profound
anyhow,
joke. So,
to get back to this, one of the four foundations is karma. It said, you can't really be a genuine Buddhist if you don't believe in karma. Actually, I suppose that would mean you're in the nihilistic camp because you deny anything has an effect. But this sounds like a kind of having your cake and eating it too kind of thing, because we can't establish a innate or inherent relationship between seed and sprout. It's an appearance that we impose a conceptual imputation on. But the thing with karma is it's not something visible like a plant and the seed and the sprout. I mean, we can see this with our senses, but karma is not something just like the mind. It's not something we can look at and we can see. And whether you say there's Prasangika denies there's a alaya, inherently existent storehouse of consciousness. It's not at the same time denying karma. And karma seems to me, when we're talking about karma, we're talking about another kind of appearance, as though it seems to me. We can't say it inherently exists, but it's an appearance like seed and sprout. But the seed and sprout, we can actually observe that there has to be a seed. A seed has to precede a sprout. But with karma, we can't observe this in the same way. It's not quite in the same category. So it almost sounds like we're still, even though we're saying, oh, well, the storehouse doesn't inherently exist, nonetheless, karma inherently exists. So, that's kind of a fine line between saying, oh, this is an appearance or it's inherent. Because seed and sprout, we can go through this logical thing and we can observe it through the senses. But we can't do the same thing with karma. So, while I don't really want to deny the existence of karma. Maybe it's because of my pride. I can't call myself a Buddhist anymore.
You're too kind for the karma.
and nonetheless,
karma appreciates that you haven't denied it.
We're talking about it as something that's inherently existing. We kind of separate ourselves from mind only by saying, oh, they believe the alaya exists. No, we don't accept the alaya exists, but we accept karma. Karma, whether there's a storehouse for the seeds or not. It sounds like we're really, even though we're denying the argument of the mind-only school, that we're making an identical argument. We're just getting rid of we don't accept the conceptual storehouse as such.
Yeah.
That's as best as I can articulate it.
Okay. Thank you. That's great. So first, I would say, having cake is to eat, not to storage. It will be spoiled. So anything that is born to die, anything that arises to disintegrate. So there is no things that you can hold it forever. There's another things that tends to disintegrate. So everything. So the cake is to eat, not to keep. So when you eat, and also the cake is gone, but there is a sign that you have ate the cake. So you can see in the morning or the evening. So that proves that you have, when you drink the coffee and when you go to the bathrooms, it smells like coffee. So which means, oh, I have drank the coffee. This is how it. There is there's the force. There is the sign. So this kind of action that how many times, how many different ways of we have committing the karmas, so karma is because of the nature of the impermanent. Once they committed, once they acted, and then it will disintegrate. But it will leave the sign, right? Thief is gone. Now there is the trace. So you can. So this is what the continuation of that is sign of having had committed that karma. So this continuation is still there. Maybe you can call it momentum of that karma, right? Momentum of that actions. So now the Prasangika school saying that the purpose of your creating the the store of consciousness, which contains all the karmic seed in it. So which means you are objectively thinking, not the eye consciousness, not the ear consciousness, not the body, not even the sixth consciousness, the mental consciousness. So only the eighth consciousness, the storage consciousness. This one is only carrying the seed, if you means that, right? So what makes you think that the one single consciousness, which is me, and after the death, this will go to the next life, and this is the one that carries all the karmic seeds. So the Prasangika school says, so now there is they found something, so minority school, and they don't accept non-Buddhist schools the concept of I as the Atma, the independent, permanent. So the Prasangika, so you have negate that, the Atma negated, and you found your own Atma, right? So you negate non-Buddhist school Atma, and you make your own Atma. So the storage, that is consciousness, which carries only the karmic seeds. So this karmic the foundation of the consciousness, of the storage of the consciousness. So this is, you are saying, this is me, this is the person. So this person is, after the death, this consciousness as a person going to the next life. So in that case, yes, after having death, this just kind of alive and still goes to the next life. So we see this is like Atma. You have negated non-Buddhist school Atma, and you establish your own Atma. And the second thing is why do you need to create the storage of consciousness which only function as a carrying the karmic seeds? Like all the karmic sins, the sins, the ravening and with eye consciousness, with nose consciousness, with tongue consciousness. So why those consciousness is not related, connected to the karma? Why only the storage of consciousness? So do they go to the office, each consciousness, when they ripen the karmic result? So sometime if you want to kind of, if you expect something good happen, and you may kind of, appeal to the storage of the consciousness. I have committed, I remember I have committed the positive karma. Now this is not ravening. So I'm going to request you, please permit me to experience the positive karma. So the Prasad Soul says, this kind of, it's logically is not approvable. So that every kind of, the function of your mind, every emotions is always related to what you have done in the past. These are whole, today is the sign of yesterday. Tomorrow is the sign of the today. Right? So if you have, the dinner, the heavy dinner at night, morning, you don't get hungry. So the morning not getting hungry is the sign of you had a big dinner. So the having breakfast is to when so it will have the sign of you having a breakfast. And the lunchtime, if the breakfast is too late, and the lunchtime you don't hungry, you don't want to eat more. So although the food has gone, all it ceased to exist, and the activity of eating is all ceased to exist. But it left the sign. You have eaten the breakfast. You have done something yesterday, and today you feel something. Yesterday you eat something. Today you feel good. You feel tired. So the present is the sign of the past. Why do you need one particular, the storage of the consciousness, to prove that past exist? So this is why the Prasangika school says, this is like, every action that is committed is like the momentum of this continue within your consciousness. Now, if your consciousness, invoke one particular karma in the present time, like in the present, the emotional or any positivity or negativity actions, is kind of invoking one continuum, and then it kind of, produce the result. So when the person who has many karma, many negative karma, positive karma, negative karma, if this person, and suddenly within this life, he become arhat. So what happened? So then this is, those karmas like dried seeds. So there is no water, and it cannot give any result, but it's still there. So during the Bodhisattva, some of the arhat, after having attained the arhat, they show, right? So the force, they demonstrate how powerful the karma is. Like one of the arhat, he died with hungry and thirst. So because Buddha says something, Buddha says, accept the karma. So he thought, that's what Buddha means. I have to accept that karma. If you don't accept, that he has independent. So he's liberated being. He won't invoke any of those negative karma. And those karmas, negative karma, will remain as a dried seed. So no sprout at all. And to show the other followers to believe in the law and cause and effect, and he accept the result, and then he died with this. Right? So that's the kind of, it's kind of another way of teaching to for the rest of the fellow, the follower of the Buddhism when it's teaching to kind of with losing faith, not losing faith in the law and cause and effect. And Mongolputra, and then there's another arhat, and he, after having attained the arhat, he went back to his royal family, and they sent the army, and they killed him. So this whole, he already know this will happen. So it's to demonstrate the other people. So do not, disturb the karma. Right. So it's, if the karma is like, things that you buy from the store, then you may need some kind of storage to put everything there. Right. So then you can make the list. I have this much, this from the IKEA products, I have from the Apple stores, and you all store it in the one particular small house, and you just pick each things. The action is not like that. The past, present, every present is a sign of existing of their past.
Is it okay to ask another question at this point? Here we just happen to be talking about the 8th of the 12th links of interdependent origination, or dependent origination, rather. I've heard it said, though I don't really understand this or know what your view is of it, that you need somehow to cut things at the 8th link. The 8th link is particularly to cut the cycle of rebirth.
So you're talking about within the 12 links.
Yeah,
12 links, and the eighth one.
The 8th one, this is what I heard, and I don't know really how
craving.
You would cut it, but you would have to cut at the 8th link. Is this correct from your point of view, and how would that be done? Or do I have a misconception here?
The 8 is the craving, 9 is the grasping, the 10 is the process of becoming, 11 is the birth, and 12 is aging and death. So yeah, so the kind of to destroy the cyclic of the kind of the cyclic existence, the cycling of the birth and samsara, and the 8 is the one that is fertilized all the kind of karmic seeds, karma. So if you stop fertilizing the seed, and the seed won't give any sprout. So the craving and the grasping is the fertilizers. This is the kind of, these two are that constantly inviting the karma. So the craving means, craving and the grasping are the kind of the same, it's attachment. Now, when it count in the 12 links, one is 8, one is 9, then The craving is attachment towards the feeling. Grasping is attachment to the conditions that produces that feeling. Like, the taste of the chai, attachment to the taste of the chai, and the kind of attachment to going to buy the tea and milk and gingers like that. So grasping is like that, going after the conditions. The craving is simply attached to the very taste of it. So because of this craving and grasping, so the craving that drives the grasping. So, and with that, it it fertilizes the karmic, the stream. So if with this craving and attachment, with the positivity and the positive karma, right, the craving and grasping with negative actions and negative karma. So if you overcome or eliminate the craving and grasping, and the cycling is stopped. So the very concept, again, we say in Nagarjuna's the kind of text, saying the very cycle, the concept of cycle is also based on appearance. The wheel of the cycle wheel, right? When you see a car wheel, it goes, that one part is continuously changing the place, right? So in the life, there is no any event that going forward. Every element, the kind of particles of your body, every cells of your body, it just arises and die, arising and die, arising, and it's thousand cells that born and die, right? So, and then like every event of childhood, youth, and adult, and aging, so all of them. So each one is born and then disintegrates. There is no cycling. The cycling is, yes, there's appearance of the cycling, because when we expect, right, when we anticipate the next life will be better, right? Or sometimes we say, I don't care what will happen in the next life. So the both are not caring, or caring is, right, because they believe that something may come, right? So otherwise, the stone, the trees, they don't have any concept of don't care or care, right? So that if someone is emotional, I don't care about next life, so which means they don't like it, they believe that exists, right? So that's kind of something coming, and that cause the appearance of from the present. There's something going. So that is the cyclic existence, the appearance within that appearance. So yes, true that the cause of the cycle existing is the attachment. So that's where 8, 9, and number 1, ignorance of the afflictive emotions. Number 1, number 8, number 9 are afflictive emotions, delusions. Nipa Chuba this. The second and 10th is karma. The second is the karma, the newly created karma as a second thing. And then the 10th, the karma that already fertilized, now ready to give birth, ready to give rise to the next life. So the number 10 and number 1 are same karma. And the rest is the conditional suffering. And name and form, faculties, sensations, and then the aging, birth. These are the conditional suffering. Right? Number 1, 8, 9 are delusions. Number 2 and number 10 are karma. But yeah, in the simple way, when we think, right, and every day you experience, so every time the morning you wake up, or every time you experience something, right, you face kind of negative consequences or the positive consequences, not happy or happy. You always look back. Oh, this is what I did. This, therefore I'm right. I'm happy. Or I say this now. I'm correct. I say this, now I'm regret. So this every present, whatever is happening, is always caused by the past. So everything that is happening in the present time is the representative of the past. So similarly, everything happening right now are the cause for the future. So in that case, you don't need any container, the special wallet. You don't need the expensive bag to put things separately. So you are the continuum of the past. So that's why in Prasangika school says that we don't accept the foundation of consciousness, or mind-based, or alaya, or the storage of consciousness. So, and again to remind that, so the presents are the sign of the past, and the presence is still no different from the past. Past is no different from the present. Future is no different from the present. Future, right, itself is no different from the present. Right. So you see, no different but not the same. No different, not the same. So, and what is that? No difference, but not the same. So, no different, not the same is there. Because of that's not the same, it has to be separate. Right? So, not the same, both exist, but not the same is separate. And no different, but the separate is no different, but it's separate. Yogurt is no different from the milk, right? But it's separate because milk is in the past, yogurt is in the present. So the separations does not mean the substantial is separate, like apple and orange. And how this separate happen to exist. So it's like conceptually distincted two separate entities. Not essentially, they are, different. So essentially, the difference means if the yogurt is essentially different from the milk, and yogurt and milk supposed to be exist like apple and orange, cow and horse. So this is like person last night who sleep, and the morning that person wakes up. And then the person who wake up is no different from the person who slept last night. But they are not the same. It's one, it happened in last night. So the the person who has wake up in this morning, because the time difference is orderly happening. So this is called transformations. So transformations does not mean that the very thing that happened in the past is coming again back to the present. I think this has a lot of confusions, many religiously or maybe education fields. There are always there's big confusions. Continuity, which means it's continually happening. They always look into that one single entity is constantly happening. I think that's a really kind of misunderstanding. So in that case, you don't have continuity of the 6 days as a week. So the Monday has to exist, continually exist in Tuesday. And Tuesday continuously exists with Thursday. And what happened Monday? Oh, Monday bring back 2. So in the Wednesday, you have 3 days there. So they don't come back. But because of the Monday ceased to exist or disintegrated, therefore it is the Tuesday. And the Tuesday disintegrated, and therefore it is the Wednesday. So, in the Lama Tsongkapha, the essence eloquence, there's the condition. They talk about the nature of the conditions. And Lama Tsongkapha says, past do not coming back to its positions. Present does not remain. Right? So remain means without any change. It's not remaining. And the future is not. Future has no control. The future has no control. How do I become? Right. So that is the very nature of the conditioned phenomena. So if that is the case, and then what is the continuities? The past is not coming back. Present is not remaining without change. And the future has no control. Yeah. Any other questions? No questions. Chanju Simjo Rinpoche, Majebana, Jeju, Jebanya, Mebanya, Kondo, Pebbles, Onye Tawa Rinpoche, Majebana, Jeju, Jebanya, Mebanya, Kondo, Pebbles, Pama Simjen Tamje, Data Denju, Nedro Tamje Tato Tonga, Chanju Simba, Kanda Sushu, Tada Kunjo, Molon Jujuruj, Karera Vyogo, Shimazu, Pella Devon, Alun Juve, Jerezan, Tinzinja, Shabe, Sideva.
May the precious body mind not yet born arising. May the born like multiply but increase forever. May the precious mind realizing emptiness not yet born arising. May the born like multiply but increase forever. Due to all these merits, may all Father and Mother sentient beings have all happiness, and may all lower realms be empty forever. Wherever there are Bodhisattvas, may all their prayers be accomplished immediately. In the sacred land surrounded by snow mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness, more powerful changes into the remain in this world until samsara ends.
Thank you very much. Oh, Steve.